Hi, friends! Life is full of choices, so let's explore the best ways to thrive. This is the Connecting You podcast, hosted by me, Myra Richards, and my marketing director, Emily Robinson. Tune in to discover a healed, healthy, and purposeful life. Welcome to the Connecting You podcast. I'm your host, Myra Richards.
I'm Emily Robinson.
We're going to start with an icebreaker before we get into the season. Season 4 is about single and dating, and I'm very passionate about it. But the question is for the icebreaker, would you rather receive $1 million or never listen to music again? Not you.
Never listen to music again is really hard because there's so much time left to live. I feel like over the next 60 years, I could find a way to make $1 million. Yeah, I guess the instant gratification would be nice now, but then what? Every single event in your life is not going to have music. No, I think that would be too sad. Like, what are you going to do in the car?
Do you ever drive without listening to music?
No.
I do all the time.
Really?
I've always done that, even when I was younger. Yeah.
What do you think about?
Which is funny because Christina once got in my car and she was like, I have never not listened to music in a car. And we just went about an hour without turning on the radio. And I was
Well,
like,
there's someone to talk to. I'm fine.
I don't even know that we were talking.
Usually, what do you do?
You just think, you just
are in the
process,
car.
you pray. I don't know. There are lots of things to do.
No, for me, that's funny because the car is the place to listen to music. Like, I get annoyed if someone tries to do anything else in the car.
Differences.
Okay. What would you pick? You would pick music?
I'd pick music, yeah, because of the fact that my life revolves around music. Gavin and I dancing together. We love to dance together. The girls in their little jitterbug camps and
That's true. You couldn't dance with anyone unless you were singing, but
yeah.
it's not like we're these great prolific singers. Oh, you'd get pretty good if you couldn't listen to music. Okay, why did we want to talk about single and dating for season 4?
I have a lot of clients who are single, who are dating. I have a few friends who are single, and I get really passionate about it. I remember being single still to this day. I haven't been single for a little bit now, for like 8 years, which is wild.
8 years is not a little bit.
That's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before that, my dating experiences were awful. So I'm very passionate about it, and I wanted to talk about it. I think it's important. So the first episode, I wanted it to be about the question of when are you ready to date? I've had that question in my office a lot of times. I think after being in counseling for such a long time, clients don't really feel comfortable to say to themselves, like, hey, I'm ready now.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the healing journey isn't done fully or something.
Right. Like I usually have to be like, maybe get on Hinge. Giving them that boost to say, like, no, you can. You've worked on stuff and it is okay that everything's not perfect.
Like people are scared to get hurt again or that they don't trust themselves to make good decisions.
I think the choice that it comes with it of what if I choose another person, another wrong person? You have to be comfortable, and we'll talk about this later in the season, but you have to be comfortable with being rejected in a
Yeah.
big way because especially if you do apps, you're gonna have to say no to a lot of people, but you're also gonna get no's from some guys or girls. So
Yeah. I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Like I myself definitely shy away from dating just at different times of my life, but I've seen other people who cannot be alone. Which is another problem. Like they just jump from relationship to relationship and they don't stop to question, am I actually ready to date? Am I actually in a place to be making good decisions? So that's why I wanted to put that question out there and see what makes it so that somebody is ready to date.
I think the number one thing for me is that you need to have time. I read this when I was single in a book. I can't even remember the book, nor would I recommend it, I don't think. But this one part of the book, it was actually really good of asking yourself, do I have time in my life right now to add another person?
Yeah.
Because going on dates takes time. Texting takes time. Getting on the phone. And if your life is pretty full right now, then how are you going to add something else to it? So at that moment of your life, you have to be ready to say, I'm going to have to say no to a number of things in order to say yes to dating.
But what if I feel like, oh, there's never like the perfect time to do something? There's never the perfect time to have a kid or get married. What if that's my philosophy and people want to just jump in now?
It honestly, I think, would depend because we were lucky enough to where
Who's we?
Gavin and I were lucky enough to where I was really busy going back and forth working from Athens to Atlanta. And he was doing ultimate frisbee almost twice a week, gone on weekends. And I don't know what our relationship would have looked like. I definitely know that we wouldn't have gotten married in a year and a half simply because he tore his ACL, which forced him to stay home, which forced us to have an actual relationship of seeing each other at least once a week. And so we got to know each other pretty well. Now I think back of what would have
If he hadn't
happened.
torn his ACL.
Right, if he hadn't torn his ACL, he would have been gone a lot of weekends, a lot of the weeks. And for my personality, it would have taken a really long time to gain the amount of trust that I have in him to be
Yeah.
able to say yes to engagement because you just
Yeah.
don't see that person.
How did
You
he
know,
propose? I actually don't even know that.
he proposed at his parents' house. We went there. I wanted to host a party for the eclipse that year, 17 in August. And I thought that I was going to have this party because it went right by South Carolina. Like South
Oh,
Carolina
really?
was like one of the areas that you could really see it. And so I said, so he was like, let's throw a party. And I was like, okay, at his parents' house. What is interesting is that that same week, I had a dream that he was proposing at his parents' house. And I talked to him one of the nights. I'm like, do not propose at your parents' house.
What?
I'm like, I
Okay.
don't want to be proposed because I
In
thought,
front of people, like overwhelming?
no, I wanted it to be intimate and I wanted there to be fireworks.
Okay.
I always have wanted fireworks. And he just looked at me. He just, I don't know. I don't know what
And it
he
was
thought.
August, so you had already just passed the 4th of July.
And anyway, I was surprised. I was very surprised, but it was sweet. He took me to an area where it could feel intimate. It was in the little patio area. And then when we went back through the house to the pool area, that's where all our friends were. And they knew. And then fireworks went off because his
Oh, they
best
had
friend, he
fireworks?
had fireworks. Yeah. So it was perfect. It was
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah. That's what he proposed. And I love
Oh,
seeing every time we go to his parents' house, I look at those two
that area.
chairs. Yeah. And I also, right, I remember going to the patio and being like, this is so romantic. I think I'm just going to propose to you. And he was like,
You said that to him?
yes.
Myra, you were trying your hardest to make this not happen.
And he's like, no, you don't need to do that. And that's when he
Yeah,
went down on
obviously, you
me.
don't need to do that.
And he went down on me.
Okay. Me as the guy, I would be like, what if she says no and then you walk out and there's a huge group of people there? I
Guys
wouldn't
have to
stop
be really sure that you're going to say yes
to propose to
to
you.
propose to you. If they're not sure, it's usually because they're trying to manipulate the proposal, I think, from what I've seen.
We'll get into that, I guess, later.
Another time.
Let's say you're single right now. Hopefully, you have the time to date. Yeah, this is something I thought it was interesting that we talk about single and dating right now because I'm intentionally not dating at this time. I would say pretty much all year. The first 2 months, I wasn't thinking about dating. And then in March, I was like, okay, I'm not going to go on dates. I'm not going to be dating
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future because this was not my year for that. I don't want to. I have my other goals that I'm prioritizing and that I want to go after and pursue and focus. But nobody believes you that you don't want to date. I don't know if it's being a young woman, but everyone, they're like, but get on the apps, just download an app, or they'll tell guys to message me, or guys that I've known have asked me on dates. And I'm honest, I'm not dating right now. But if I were on the receiving end of somebody saying that, I'd be like, oh, she just doesn't like me. And I feel like people don't believe that you would intentionally not want to because you're doing other things. So
Hmm.
I think there's some kind of misconception that women have to want to date someone.
You don't have to want to date. You just not date out of fear, which is not what you're doing, right? You're like intentionally saying, hey, this is just not the year for me to add one more person to my life.
Yeah.
I have other goals that I really need to put my mind on. But there are people out there that choose not to date out of fear of dating.
So
And
what would that look like?
I think that would look like you go and you just kind of make your life busy with things that are not really important, or you just say, hey, I'm not going to date because guys are blah, 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 blah.
Oh yeah, like they don't like
You
men
know,
in general.
yeah, or I'm not going to date because I'm going to get hurt, or I'm not going to date because whatever. I'm not going to date because I don't have time. I'm like, okay, is it that you don't have time? Because people do have time,
Yeah,
right? And is it that you don't have time, or is it that you're scared to actually to make the
possibly
effort?
fail. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
My friend just moved to California, and I thought it was so funny because she had gotten out of a relationship and like a couple months ago, and then she moved to California. She lands, and like the first weekend she's there, the first event that she's invited to, the first person who shows up is now her boyfriend.
Wow.
And
That's
she,
sweet.
I know. I was like, what do you mean? But I loved that for her because I was like, clearly she's ready. She was just, it was time.
Yeah.
All of those things like conspiring together. I was like, this is her moment to do that. And I
Yeah.
love that.
And it is also about having time and timing, I think, which that you can't, there are parties that Gavin and I have been to before we met where we never met. And we were
Yeah.
within hours or minutes of seeing each other,
It
which
just
is
wasn't time.
wild. Yeah, it just wasn't the right time. He was dating somebody at that party.
How dare
And
he?
I had just gone through a breakup.
Oh,
So
yeah.
a lot of the times when I prayed for my husband, I just remember praying, Lord, whatever he's doing out there, let him be safe, let him be pursuing you, and let his heart heal. I would really pray blessings over him. Even
Hmm.
before I met him. Selfishly, I was like, I am going to meet him one day and I want him to
I
be
want him to
healthy.
be ready,
Yeah,
fully
I
cooked.
want him to be fully ready for me. And when we met, I think we both were. We were ready.
How do you know that you're ready?
I wasn't looking for somebody to tell me that I'm worthy or that I'm loved. I just remember feeling so excited and wanting to give love to somebody so badly. I was like, God, I have so much love in my heart, and I just want
To
to
give.
share that with somebody. I had gone on a date. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I just remember going on that date, and I was like, I am who I am. This is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And that felt the most freeing. And I knew in that moment, because I was terrified to go on that date, but I knew in that moment after going on that date, I was like, I'm ready. I'm not trying to be anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is me.
The feeling that I get, which is the flip side to that, I know that I'm ready to date when I'm looking at it. As you said, you were showing up as you, but when I'm ready to show up and actually assess the person in front of me rather than just dive in with whoever wants to give attention. If I'm actually showing up
Yeah.
and saying, okay, he did this and this that is not aligned with who I am, or he's all these things, but when you're ready to assess and be like, this isn't what I wanted,
Yeah.
and you can turn away from that, because otherwise you're just going to go from person to person. I'm like, this next guy's the same as who
Hmm.
you just said wasn't good for you or who wasn't who you wanted to be with.
Yeah.
So you just keep finding the same person unless you're ready to reject them too.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you're ready to say no to red flags. I think a lot of my past dating was, oh, I see a red flag or I see a yellow flag. It's no big deal. I'll just continue. When you're ready to say,
Yeah.
like, no, I see a yellow flag and that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Which is really hard because you have to separate the emotional part and the practical side and just say, practically, this does not work for me. Even if I'm super attracted to this person.
Yeah.
This is not, he has a job where he flies out.
For
It
you
works
are.
for some people, and that's
Yeah.
great. But for me, that wouldn't have worked for me. And so you have to know what you are wanting.
Yeah, something that I heard online, and then I've said it to my friends before as well. I can't remember what her boyfriend was doing, but I was like, if he does this for the next 60 years, is that going to be okay?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're saying right now. Like, oh, we just started
Yeah.
dating. Maybe he's still adjusting to us starting to date, or maybe it'll change, or maybe. And I was like, okay, but if it doesn't, if
Right.
it never gets any better from where it is now, is that how you want your life to look? Is that something that you're going to be okay with?
Yeah.
Because maybe it will change, maybe it won't. But the gamble that you're making now is based off of that. And it could happen every day for the rest of your life. So,
Yeah.
That's hard.
I knew of somebody that he hadn't changed. He had not changed. I remember being like, "So you're saying he's pretty consistent with his personality?"
Yeah.
She was like, "Yeah, but you've changed and you want something different." And she goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay,
It's
if
like
you
clear
want
course of
something different,
action.
yeah, then you have to leave because you wanted him to change so he can fit the mold of the different that now you want." I'm like, "Actually, he's pretty stable. He has not changed. He has shown himself to you as himself for the past 8 years, and that's great. You know that's not going to change. But if that's not what you want anymore, then that's on her, you know."
Women especially fall into this role of almost mothering or fixing, or this fear of being alone leads us to stay and try to just change or mold people when it's not really our position.
Even in the Christian world, I think it's like, I'm going to give grace. I'm going to give grace. You don't have to when you're dating. If you're married, yes, you have to
They're
give
not
grace,
going
you have to be
anywhere
mercy.
for a
When
moment.
you're dating, it's an interview. You're interviewing somebody to be with for the rest of your life. I've said this before. I say this to my clients. I'll say it again. That is the only thing you choose, guys. When it comes to deep relationships, you don't choose who your kids are going to be. You don't choose your parents. Besides your friends and the person that you partner with,
Hmm.
that's a big responsibility. So wait. If it's not here yet, wait. It is worth the wait. For every person that I could list 10, 20 people, it is worth the wait.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about the weight later in the season. But I did want to bring up something that you told me once stood out a lot. And you said that every single client who has come to you wanting to either date or get married has left your office at some point having a partner or getting married.
Yeah.
And I wanted to unpack that as we go into this season. How do you do that?
Part of counseling is helping you get ready, right? Helping you work through some wounds. I can only speak for what I know of myself. I used to come to guys and turn into whatever they wanted. And they wanted pancakes. I love pancakes. If you've ever seen the movie Runaway Bride, that was me.
Yeah, like a mold.
Yeah, and I started growing, and counseling helped me a lot of like, why do I do that, right? Because I was wanting somebody to validate that I'm worthy and that I'm loved so bad that I was like, maybe if I like
Mhm.
their music. And so I think that counseling helps you with that, helps you process all those things and helps you process through your triggers and what do you like and even what you value. Sitting in counseling and being like, what do I actually want? It's helpful to know and it's helpful to process. That's why I think that as they start getting to know themselves more, they start getting to know why they want a spouse in the first place.
Yeah,
Because the question is, why do you want something so bad? Because it's not easy. It's not easy.
to be married.
I think the hardest part is the decision making, right? Before, I could just go and buy a car. Now, we have to have deep conversations about car buying for long periods of time. Or I could just pack up my bags and be like, I'm gone. I'm going somewhere. And now it's like, oh, no, I need to think of the impact that it has on my family.
Mhm.
Again, you're stepping into a level of humility that you want to do it with the right person.
And it's hard to share with somebody else if, as you said, you're very fluid in who you are for them. If you get together with somebody, then you're just going to be sort of a shadow of who you were
Yeah.
or of who they are.
Yeah.
If you just jump in and you don't have this clear sense of self.
Yeah. I ask my clients to go on dates because then they go on dates and something goes not great. And then I'm like, okay, let's process through that. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
This episode, what we really wanted to dive into was, when are you ready to date? And the advice that Myra had was, you're ready to date when you have time, when you are not focused on your other goals, when you are not actively pursuing something else. You have to be ready to start fully sharing your life with somebody. Secondly, you have to know when you are ready to offer something to somebody else. You have to love yourself first to the point that your cup is overflowing, not to the point where you're looking for somebody else to fill your cup. Otherwise, you can get into a situation where you lose yourself and where you weren't ready to give to that person. The last thing is that we really recommend counseling because you have to work through a lot of your past wounds. You have to get to know yourself and your triggers.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next week for episode 2. And it will be about how do negative core beliefs around dating affect your experience. See you soon. The Bible verse for this season is Psalm 130, 5-6. I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning. More than watchmen wait for the morning. Jesus, we thank you that you are a God of hope. You're a God of joy. And I pray that in this season of people who are dating and single and hoping, Lord, in this season of waiting, that you will come so near to every single one of your children, that you would renew hope, that you will renew their minds into putting their hope in your word and in you, Lord. God, I pray for people to find their person, for people to find joy in being single. Lord, whatever it is that you have for their lives, we know that you are a good dad who cares for your children, and you will give them more than enough, more than what they ask for, Lord, because that is the heart of a father. So, Lord, thank you for loving us, for taking care of us, and we will wait. We will wait for you. In Jesus' name, I pray. As we wrap up today's episode, we are grateful you join us to explore what it means to remain connected to God, to yourself, and to others. To stay updated on future episodes, be sure to hit that subscribe button and connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Remain Connected. Counseling appointments can be made at RemainConnectedLLC.com. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, may you find peace in your connections and blessings in every step of your journey. Have a blessed day.